Hey everyone, this time we read Shovel Knight by David Craddock. Unlike a lot of the other boss fight books that I've read, this one isn't really David's memories of playing the game. This is more of a deep dive into the game, so he does a lot of interviews with the developers and that sort of thing. It works really well. It was just one of those weird shifts where I got so used to books from boss fight books being about, hey, here are my memories and here's the history of the game, to being, here's the history and here's a bunch of developer interviews. I do want to point out that this is also covered in Jason Schreier's book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. I've already covered that book, so I knew a lot of the story of Shovel Knight and Yacht Club already. This does a much better job of kind of going more in depth and getting more of the motivations and that sort of thing out of them. There's a lot of this book that is dedicated to really getting at the motivations behind the people at Yacht Club and why they wanted to make an 8-bit style game, and how nostalgia really played a part in just the way they set the game up. And David does a very good job of explaining that. Sometimes he goes into a bit too much detail for me, but there is a lot of stuff in here that is very good. So specifically, the games that are talked about as being inspirations for Yacht Club are Link, which is Zelda 2, DuckTales, the Mega Man games, Castlevania, and also Super Mario. These are all pretty standard, but they kind of tell you where they were going to be going with Shovel Knight. And they wanted to make one of those NES games that was hard, but still, able to be beaten. Granted, some of these games are not super hard to certain people, but others, they can be pretty difficult. What Yacht Club wanted was to really capture that spirit of this was an older NES game that just happens to be on a modern console, and, you can do a lot more with it at that point. I think they achieved it. I mean, it definitely, matches exactly what you would expect from Link and also from DuckTales. You can definitely see the inspiration when you play Shovel Knight. You can do a lot of the same things that you were doing in DuckTales, and also there were a lot of added-on things that you couldn't see in Link as well. They also touch on the idea of NES hard, which I'm really confused as to the origins of this term. I know it just means a game that's pretty hard, and you don't really get a lot of explanation on how to do things. And that was pretty common for the time, they kind of expected you to read the instruction manual. This was something that is talked about quite a bit, and it's interesting how they kind of rationalized it and worked around it. It's a pretty good story to tell, and it was one of the nicer parts in the book. We hear a lot about the close relationship that they had with Nintendo and how they kind of grew that over time. That seemed to really help them out a lot, as it gave a lot more publicity to the game and just really gave it a lot of exposure, which, looking at it now, you could say, well, hindsight's 2020, I don't think they really needed the exposure. But it definitely helped them out a lot, both getting their Kickstarter goals and then also just getting the game out there so that more people could see it and more people would know about it. This is still the time, in the really late 2010s, when indie games really hadn't been around for very long on console. It's kind of crazy to think about that now, but there was a very long stretch where if you wanted to get the game from an indie developer, you had to go to PC. You couldn't really get one on a console. Mostly because of cartridges, but also because of a bunch of other reasons. There just wasn't a way for indie developers to actually get their games to the consoles and to the actual just console players until really digital distribution came about. So aside from their relationship with Nintendo, the other thing that I was just really amazed that David put so much on this one topic in there was really on the finances, not necessarily of the company itself, but the finances of all the people in the company and how they budgeted out they budgeted out all the Kickstarter money to say, like, okay, this is what we can pay ourselves, this is what we need to finish the game, and then this chunk is going to be for marketing and whatnot. And you hear stories from each of them about how their like personal finances got strained at this time because as soon as that game gets delayed, it's like, well, okay, our personal budgets are kind of out the window, and they had to go. I think it was like a month or month and a half without getting a paycheck, and that probably could have killed the game right there. But they managed to get through it all. It's just a really great story, and it's one of those things that I'm glad is in the book because you really don't hear that too often, especially if you're talking about a big budget game. There were also times when I just kept on saying to myself, okay, I got it. They're replicating an NES game. These are the NES games that they were kind of inspired by, and they wanted to replicate it. I get it. Can we please move on now? It doesn't happen often, but there were one or two spots where I was like, yeah, I got it. I got it, David. Let's keep the story going. Let's keep this moving. So despite some of the issues that I had with this, it's a very good book, and I really enjoyed reading it. Uh, Even if there were some parts where I was just kind of like, really? Are we really doing this? Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and have a great day, everyone.